Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 2. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday. And Dave, during training camp, my days are so screwed up, so I'm sure I'm going to say the wrong day for one of these things. But how you doing on this? Let me double check. Yes, it is Tuesday.
Absolutely, and as I've had some old bosses say in the past to me, did you sleep fast? And that's, when I was in sales, in coffee sales many moons ago, we used to live basically. There were times where we go on sales blitzes to other cities or whatnot. We'd all hole up, two in a room, and there'd be about I guess about 10 of us in total. And so what we'd do is we'd sit there in the hotel rooms and have the low man on the totem pole would have to host kind of a poker game, if you will. So what we do at night is, of course, get loaded up on beer. A few of us snort some cocaine, and we play poker until early hours of the morning, and then turn around, lay in bed, and sleep about 90 minutes and get up and go put in a full day's work there. So sleeping fast, but a lot have happened. A lot has happened already. And before we even got on, we said, man, it seems like what all we talked about on Friday is like 3 weeks ago. But actually, it was just a weekend and a few days ago. Here we are, Tuesday, the Steelers' first day off of training camp after a 4-day run there. How you feeling?
Tired, but probably not as tired after the 5-day stretch that's coming up. But it's been a really good start to camp. We'll get to kind of a camp, just brief overview for people who haven't listened to the nightly podcast here in a second. But I want to start with the most recent news that came out this morning. I believe it was Field Yates of ESPN. The report is that the Steelers have restructured the contract to Stephon Tuitt. That's going to clear up some much-needed cap space for this team.
Yeah, we knew at least one restructure was coming, right? And I wrote about that several weeks ago. In my opinion, Cameron Hayward was probably the top candidate of that list because of what they could clear, and with him potentially set up to get a new contract by this same time next offseason. Also on that list were guys like Stephon Tuitt and David DeCastro were prime candidates if they wanted to go that way. The Steelers chose to go the way of Stephon Tuitt. Even despite after paying him, Tuitt was one of those few players that was due a roster bonus back at the start of the new league year in March. With Tuitt, it was $3 million. Exactly. So they went ahead and paid that, but yet now they have turned around after paying him that roster bonus and decided to restructure his base salary in 2019. So what they have done is they've converted $5.195 million of Tuitt's $6 million base salary he was due in 2019 into a signing bonus that drops his base now from $6 million down to the minimum it can be for his years in the league, which is $805,000. The result of that move over the course of the 3 remaining years on top of it means that this year the Steelers actually save $3.896250, so almost $3.9 million in salary cap space they save in this year, 2019, by doing this restructure. The restructure results in Tuitt's cap charges in 2020 through 2022 increasing by almost $1.3 million. In fact, the exact number is $1.298750. That's how much each of his cap numbers in the next 3 years increase there. When you take the nearly $3.9 million that they saved in this or cleared in this restructure of Tuitt's contract, and you add it to the nearly $1 million they had entering Tuesday, they now have exactly $4.881 $2.218 million underneath the salary cap. So a little shy of $4.9 million. This team's probably going to want around $5 million in available salary cap space once the regular season starts, in order to to provide for any in-season moves. God forbid they should need a lot of them, or anything else, kind of an emergency slush fund, if you will. So with them sitting at almost 4.9 now, and knowing that there's going to be probably some cleared cap space after some final cut downs happen, this probably is going to be the one and only restructure, unless they plan on extending the contract of not only Joe Haden, but a guy like Javon Hargrave.
And we were talking briefly before the podcast, should they stay at this number, it's likely that Haden and Haden alone will get the contract extension this summer.
That would, in my view, be the best guess, because
if they wanted to do both, they would be creating more cap space, is the idea, right?
Right. Well, I guess technically you could do Haden, depending on average yearly and how long the extension. I mean, you could clear cap space by doing a contract extension with Haden, but how much? A couple million maybe? That couple of million would be enough to probably offset, what Hargrave's number would increase by doing an extension for him. My thought on the matter is, and look, I mean, if they can get Hargrave, we both agree they should do Hargrave if they can come to an agreement with him. The question is will they, with what he could potentially make in free agency? Will the Steelers be willing to go that high? We'll see. So technically, even if they did do Haden and were able to do Haden and free up a couple, $2 or $3 million in the process, well, that money that they save there could easily help offset what a Hargrave increase in this cap number this year would be via a very lucrative contract extension there. My thought is, if they don't do Hargrave and they do Haden, is that make the extension front loaded, make it a 2-year extension on top of this year, and do it where he's getting enough money up front where his cap number doesn't move at all this year. And to me, that would make the most sense. It would help, it would help should you need to, God forbid, to have to cut Haden after the next 2 years. But I mean, we're it's tomato here, basically. I think what all this does signify now at this point, looking at everything, is probably that Tuitt is going to be the only restructure this year, and then now we'll wait and see what happens with the extensions moving on through the rest of the summer here.
And you said for a Haden extension, which we assume is going to happen, probably not going to happen, though, until after training camp, based on recent history, Colbert history.
Yeah, I mean, that would be what's the rush to do it right this moment?
And you made the point about injury. Make sure he gets too healthy. Nothing crazy happens in that third preseason game.
Right. If I were them, I'd let him get through training camp. I'd let him get through the first 3 games of the preseason, and then go ahead and get the extension done after that. I mean, really, what's the rush of doing it now as opposed to after the third preseason game?
And you said, I remember you tweeting about this the other day, the last corner to sign an extension during camp was what, Chad Scott and Dwayne Washington?
Yeah, how's that? And this is an extension during training camp. Obviously, they did Cortez Allen a few years ago, but that was after training camp had actually broken. Okay, I stumped myself on this one. I was going back, I knew that Cortez Allen wasn't the answer. I knew that Ike Taylor wasn't the answer, because Ike Taylor was actually in 2011. He was actually a free agent at the time, and hadn't re-signed yet. So his was actually a re-signing at the time. But yeah, I mean, if you think about, and really it makes sense. I mean, they haven't even had any corners that they wanted to extend, right? So I threw that out there, and after a little bit of research, Chad Scott and Dwayne Washington were, and they got it at the same time, and that was right after training camp opened in 2001.
Wow.
That's
Great.
been that long since they've had a corner. Now that's just corner specific.
Have they had I was going to ask you, have they had other positions done during training camp?
Oh yeah. Geez.
Okay.
Yeah. They.
So then it would be possible, because I don't think the corner matters a whole lot. I think if they've gotten guys done during camp, then there's some history and precedent there.
Sure. And I was just trying to frame it.
Sure.
As in it, wow, this is how long it's been since a corner has been, extended during training camp, So, but I mean, once again, they have the cap room now as a result of this restructure. I mean, could they, if they came to, there's no harm in doing it right now, obviously with Haden, but what if he were to suffer a serious knee injury? Why not?
Right.
I mean, if you got the time to buy yourself an extra 3 weeks, why not buy yourself the extra 3 weeks would be my view on it. Now, they could turn around tomorrow and say, we've signed Joe Haden to a 2 or 3 year extension, nothing to prevent that from happening. But that's the way I would go on it. So now, basically, we're just going to sit here and wait and see, and I'm 99.9% positive Haden gets done right now. And, I don't know, Hargrave, I guess 50-50, maybe 50, maybe as high as 60% chance that it gets done with him. But once again, the numbers are going to be the biggest obstacle there. I have no doubt that they want to probably get Hargrave done, and I think Ray Filippo even wrote as much, a few days ago. But there was no hard. I don't think there's been hard conversation either way, thinking that it's going to be done or not done.
I'm not going to try to even put a number on Hargrave, but I just don't feel good about it in my gut. I just don't have a good feeling that it will get done. It could, and I hope, and I've talked about that I would even put Hargrave before Haden, because I think Haden's going to be easier to do. Haden wants to be here. The money's going to be easier to figure out, all that stuff. But Haden's for sure going to get done. So that's the idea there. Steelers have some cap space, flexibility for the season. And I think they're in a good place cap-wise. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in today's era, cap massaging, look, if they can get to where they need to be by only doing one restructure, that's a win,
right.
And
on a good player like Tuitt that you're not going to worry about biting you later.
Right. Or at least we don't think so. I mean, if he stays healthy, I mean, you're with him being signed through, let's see, 2021 through 2022. This might be because you also restructured him last offseason as well, too. So you got 2 years of restructure in a row on him. You're probably done with the restructure on him,
Yeah.
And until his contract runs out, and then you decide what you want to do with him. Now, real quick, Kevin Colbert was on 93.7 The Fan yesterday morning, and he was asked about Haden, but unfortunately I don't remember him being asked about Hargrave. And he was, of course, asked about Haden, was asked if he could foresee him staying in Pittsburgh for the long haul, i.e. past this year, which is currently his final year of his contract. And Colbert says, I hope so. I mean, Joe Haden is as a professional player as you could want, and he's a really good corner. He's a great team guy, and you want Joe Haden to be part of us as long as he can. So hopefully he does remain with us. Obviously he's here this year, and again, we'll look and see where everything goes, and if it all makes sense for everybody on all sides, then, we can maybe have a good player that's a great team guy for more than 1 year. That's code for we're working on getting him done right now. Now, Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, was in camp a few days ago. Drew Rosenhaus is also the agent of Sean Davis and Mike Hilton. I don't think there's anybody out there at this point that thinks Mike Hilton's going to get done. It really seems like a stretch to think that Sean Davis might get done, albeit, it's not impossible. But you would think that with Drew Rosenhaus being in town, that was mostly pre-kind of talks with Omar Khan about Joe Haden. And once again, I will be surprised if something happens at least this week with Joe Haden. And realistically, I think you're looking maybe after that third preseason game would be the ideal time frame to do any extension. I think unfortunately, I think it's going to be Haden, and that's it.
I agree. So good stuff there. Thanks for the update and putting the camp perspective on it. Dave, I want to take a 30,000-foot view at camp, because I know that not everybody listens to the nightly podcast that we've done for training camp. So
I'm clutching my pearls right now. Not everybody listens to that. At night.
Maybe you're not aware of it. Maybe people aren't aware of it. So if you aren't aware and you're listening to the weekly normal edition, after almost every training camp practice, it probably won't happen for Friday Night Lights and the Sunday practice because they end so late. Dave and I do about a half hour, 40-minute podcast, just recapping the day, kind of running through each position group. So check that out. But now that we're in 4 days, and I had an article this morning that just kind of gave some overall thoughts. And I'll start by posing the question to you just to kind of get your feel from it, from somebody who is seeing all the reports from the media and people that are there. What are your initial impressions of just overall, or just a specific player or two that's really kind of stood out?
Making notes from the notes, if you will. I think my biggest, and we advise while we try to do these nightly updates as well too. Take them all in. Store everything away. Don't try to form any real hard conclusions just yet. I know it's easy to look at a Twitter feed or whatnot and say, well, this guy's having a supreme camp and this guy's not, and they're using this, so they're going to use this formation. I try to be more general. You can obviously draw harder conclusions than I can because you're there,
Mm-hmm.
But my general takeaways so far, and I'm trying to pull these up right now here. What did I have there? Okay. First and foremost is Joe Haden's going to get an extension, and I know that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of not really training camp practice specific, but I mean that's just one of the quick takeaways that I have here. Okay, I got it. My biggest Steelers camp notes observations through 3 practices, and now obviously 4 because this was written the day before that. Haden will indeed get extended. That's number 1. Juju has more juju. It sounds like Juju is picking up where he left off at the end of last regular season. It really sounds like he's off to a great start in training camp, as you would hope he would be with Antonio Brown, now out of the picture there. The next note I have is Ola Adeniyi is primed to explode. 2 days ago, he was the only guy it seemed like anybody could talk about, not only because of his ability to seemingly get after Gerald Hawkins quite easily during practice, but having a good showing in the backs-on-backers drill, which is slanted his way. But he either went 8-0 or 7-1, depending on who you ask there. Cameron Kelly, the AAF guy that the Steelers signed during the offseason, a guy that's played at San Diego State. Initially was a wide receiver for a short time in the AAF with the San Diego team. Due to injuries, had to switch back over to defense. Made 3 interceptions in a game. Was player of the week, and then lo and behold, he lands on the Steelers. Well, he's also the guy that seemingly replaced Sean Davis at free safety during the OTA practices. That made us raise our eyebrows, and now he's getting that time in the first team defense. Seems to be the next man up, if you will, in the slot in some other instances so far during training camp. So my note on him is Cameron Kelly indeed in play for the 53. Following the backs-on-backers reports and all, I had broken down Benny Snell and his pass protection not long after he was drafted. I was impressed with it there, so I was not shocked at all that Benny Snell seemingly represented himself well in the backs-on-backers drill. So my note there is Snell, college pass pro, carrying over. And then the last thing, and these were just kind of rapid fire, I have Dobbs sinking to number 3. It doesn't sound like he's off to a great start to this training camp.
Yeah, like we talked about in yesterday's podcast, I basically agree with all that. I think it's on the money. The number 1 player though in camp, if you just come to me and say, Alex, who has been the best dude at training camp through the first 4 practices, and I think this will be a universal answer. And I believe I keep saying his last name incorrectly, so I apologize, but he's playing so well it's making me learn how to say his last name properly, is Ola Adeniyi. This guy has just been unblockable. He's been killing Gerald Hawkins. I want to see him get some work in the first team just to go against a different type and go against a guy like Villanueva, a starting caliber player, and one of the top 10 left tackle in the NFL right now. But he's really speaking of carrying over, he's carried over what he showed in the preseason last year into the training camp this year, and I think they have a really good player, a well-rounded player in Ola Adeniji.
Well, that's good to hear because it sure would, and as we've talked, it sure would be nice to have him be the next guy, if you will, with Bud Dupree now. And here, you're talking about Bud Dupree real quick. He met the media this past week, and we knew he wasn't going to get an extension,
Right.
and he pretty much confirmed that he's not going to get an extension. And that makes sense for both sides right now. So, we're looking at a season, kind of a lame duck season, if you will, for Bud Dupree, because he would really have to have a huge, out of nowhere dominating kind of all-pro type season this year for the Steelers to even consider placing the franchise tag on him after the season's over. We don't think that's going to happen, and even if it did happen, would the Steelers even still go the route of the franchise tag with him? Kind of doubtful there. So, with him kind of being, we think him being out of the picture next offseason, who's going to be that guy? Can they, if Ola can step up and be that guy, it sure would lessen the burden in next year's draft to have to go after yet another defensive player in the first round and an edge rusher to boot.
Yeah, just to give yourself flexibility, give yourself options internally. It's so expensive to get pass rushers on the market, so that wouldn't be an option. So you'd really feel compelled to do so through the draft. And specifically, Adeniji just winning from that combination of his hand use, his ability to win the leverage battle because he's 6 foot and to rip under guys, but he's got a pass rush plan. He can counter inside. He's reading the set of the tackle. He's able to hit you with power, an inside rip move, an outside rip move, being able to swipe and knock your hands down. This guy wins in a variety of different ways. He has a good first step. He understands leverage. He understands who he is as a pass rusher. So, and we've seen solid run defense from him too. His hand use, the strength, being able to get under guys and find the ball, defeat blocks. Really, you're seeing everything. He's even gotten some praise in special teams, looking okay, dropping back into coverage in some of the on-air drills that I've seen early in warm-up. So just can't say enough good things about his game. And this is a guy that's probably going to wreck the preseason for a lot of opposing quarterbacks.
And we would hope so, right? He's going to go against a few furniture movers at times, we think. So he is a guy that we really think should have a great preseason here. I just looking back yesterday at some of his sacks. He's got some good natural instinct pass rush plans that result in nice counters back when he gets thwarted to the outside there. He's got the ability to counter back inside. He's got a nice two-hand kind of slap, if you will, chop. And there's a lot of stuff that he did just in those preseason games last year that lead us to believe that he's going to have a great, super great, preseason here.
There's a surprising amount of technique for a guy so young and so inexperienced, barely playing last year, missing a lot of time, and that's been impressive. Elsewhere, Artie Burns having a good camp. And again, this is not a shock. He always has good camps, but for a guy that needed a good camp in the camp of his life, he's been doing well. Who made a comment about him? Colbert? Do you want to wait on the Colbert comments about Burns? Do you want to talk about that right now?
Yeah, we can here. Let me flip to it here. And
because he was asked about Burns and his situation, and Colbert gave a kind of a boilerplate answer, but some sort of insight into their mindset on Artie Burns.
Yeah, and just to be specific here with Artie Burns, him still being on the roster come the start of Thursday or Sunday's practice, the first padded practice of the year, he received that $800,000 roster bonus he was due. Kevin Colbert was asked about him on the roster, and if essentially now with him being paid that roster bonus, if it means he'll make this year's 53-man roster, or guaranteed to make this year's 53-man roster, and Kevin Colbert says no. Every situation, every contract, you have to look at and make the decision whether or not you can afford to do such things based on where a player might be in their play. So again, we're not comfortable with where Artie is. We're comfortable in the fact that we know he's going to be out there and compete and provide us not only good competition, but, good depth if he's not the starter. That, he had me up until that last little bit right there. To me, it sounds like they're counting on him being good depth if he's not the starter. So in other words, we don't expect him to start, but potentially good depth there if he's not starting. Now, if you look at the rest of the Steelers cornerback depth chart, not including a guy like Kelly, who I think we both agree is more of a safety than he is a corner, or really kind of a slot guy if needed, I guess, a dime guy. I don't really view him as a guy that's going to potentially play outside. Would you agree, Cameron Kelly?
Yes, he's played slot corner. He's not going to play on the outside.
Okay. If that's the case, and you look at everybody, if you look at Joe Haden, you look at Steven Nelson, you look at Mike Hilton, and you look at Artie Burns, and then you go from there. I mean, Cameron Sutton and Brian Allen are two former draft picks. Cameron Sutton, we expect to make this roster. I think you've been talking about he's been sort of seemingly the main dime guy to start with here. Brian Allen has had some good moments, some bad moments here in training camp. Time might be short for Brian Allen. He's a guy that did not make the 53-man roster last year. Went to the practice squad and then ultimately made it back to the 53 there. It's hard to visualize Brian Allen maybe making the roster over a guy like Artie Burns. You obviously have rookie Justin Lane. He's going to make it, but he's inexperienced there. Sutton has some experience. He played over 200 snaps last year, but mostly in the slot in relief of Hilton there for a little bit there. And behind him, you have guys like Herb Waters, Marcellus Branch, and Alexander Myers. And Myers is yet to even practice.
And Branch is a safety.
And Branch is a safety.
Sutton could be probably the best argument for next man up because he play on the outside. I think he's a better outside corner than a slot corner. But I mentioned this the other day. Burns has been playing almost strictly left corner in camp, and he's been a right corner when he started. So I think they're trying to work him at left corner with the thought of him being a top backup at both spots and needing those reps at left corner should Joe Haden go down for a game or miss some action. So I think the plan loosely, not set in stone, but loosely is for Burns to potentially be that top backup at both spots.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought for a while now with him, and I know it's not making a lot of people happy. I mean, sure he's not locked. I mean, he's not a roster lock, but your opinion's changed a little bit on him now. I mean, you would actually put him on your next 53-man roster, right?
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but I feel more comfortable with that than I was before camp, before they paid the roster bonus and before he's played well and playing left corner and all the things that we've talked about. So if you just saw a 25 and you had no attachment to his history, his past, and the struggles that he's had, you'd be at camp saying this 25 is playing really well. Burns is having a nice camp.
And as you've said for all offseason, Artie Burns he's Mr. August instead of Mr. Instead of Mr. October, he's Mr. August.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson, he's not, but he plays like it in the preseason.
Right, and look, I mean, hopefully he can turn the corner. Hopefully he and later on when Kevin Colbert was talking, the last thing he had to say about him is, so one thing about him, talking about Burns, is he's never stopped working and never stopped trying. We just want him to get back to the form he really had as a rookie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy that his rookie year and some of that sophomore year were his best tape, and it's gotten worse. It's a strange scenario.
Yeah, sometimes the mind is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, and that cornerback position is so mental.
You think too much and you lose technique and you get beaten, you can't put it behind you, and then it's like a snowball effect,
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, Dave, I think that's the big stuff for camp. I mean, obviously we're going to keep talking about camp throughout, so if we missed some little thing, I mean, it's in my article today on Steelers Depot. You can check out initial thoughts. I go through position group by position group. What I want to get to now is Kevin Colbert, because I know he talked – I'm losing track of my days at this point, but 3 days ago did Colbert speak to the media right around the start of camp? Is that about when he talked to the media?
I think so, yeah. And it was after the start of camp, I think.
Yeah. It's like I think the day after. But regardless, so he talked to the media. What are some of the highlights? Because you wrote up, I think, most of that stuff that he had in speaking to the media.
Yeah, and most of it, I think, was the fact that, Mike Tomlin got his contract extension upon reporting to camp. We thought maybe there was a chance that Colbert would follow. Colbert's not going to get extended now. His current contract runs through the 2020 NFL Draft. He made it known that him and Art Rooney the second came to an agreement that they would go year to year right now with this contract. Colbert cited family and whatnot, and just different circumstances that was going to be the intention all along here, is that he would go to year. So with Kevin Colbert's and he's not leaning one way or the other, but obviously he hopes to continue on, and obviously if they win it all this year, he's not that you want to win it again. So even though there would probably be the temptation to ride off into the sunset with a championship, not guaranteed to do that. I mean, he's really just in limbo right now, and I think more than anything, he's keeping his options open. I don't know. I mean, he's got, obviously, I think, a daughter and a couple of grandchildren, and he is in his 60s now, and he has been with the Steelers all the way dating back to 2000. So, I mean, that's a long time. I mean, you would think he still loves what he does. I think he's still relatively good at what he does. I mean, we're going to find out just how good his last two draft classes are real quick, right? I mean, how this year's draft class and last year's draft class perform this year will play a large role in how the 2019 Steelers do. And if those guys stay healthy and they don't contribute like we think they should, then people are going to continue to question his ability. But he's obviously not going to take on the 2020 draft without having a new deal in place. So we're going to find out not long after the 2019 season ends what the status of Kevin Colbert is. Right? I mean,
right.
You would think that a good season, him still wanting to do it. And look, there's some rumblings, I think, with David Tepper in Carolina right now that he might be interested in hiring away, Colbert or.
No, I don't see that happening.
But I mean, I don't see that. I mean, Colbert really has no reason to leave, right? Other than it being a money situation.
Yeah, I mean, if he were to go to Carolina, that's news to me. How long is he going to be there for? I mean,
right.
A year? There's no compelling reason to uproot his family or to make that move when he's 62, get away from his family. No, I can't see that being a scenario. He'll be year to year. I think that's going to be the mindset, and just because he's 62, and not only has he been a Steelers GM since 2000, he's been in an NFL front office since the mid 80s. Broke in with Miami, I think, and then Detroit, and then Pittsburgh. So he's just been around the game for a long, long time, and I'm sure he spent so much time with that side of his life. He probably wants to enjoy his family life a little bit more. So totally understand, totally respect that. It'll be year to year, but yeah, I think each offseason, or at least this offseason, you'll get an answer for if Colbert's going to be back for 2020. And I do expect, I mean, it's certainly possible that he retires. I can't be in his head. I'm sure he doesn't even know what he's going to do right now. But I expect Colbert to be here through the end of Ben's career. I don't think he's going to retire before Ben retires.
I do as well, and at the very least, I expect him to be with the Steelers through the 2020 season, at the very least. 2021
is going to be a really interesting offseason, Dave, because you got Ben, Tomlin. I think Colbert might be out then. Pouncey. It's going to be, I mean, we're looking far ahead, but that's going to be one to circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, if Colbert does go, the key candidates, I think, Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt, right there, two guys that you could know a lot about the organization, kind of raised, if you will, through the organization, still have youthfulness on their side, that you could see one of those two guys being the next guy.
And I think most people will look at Khan, but I really think Hunt's someone that needs to be talked about more, because I mean, I know Khan got looked for GM jobs a couple of years ago. He was in the running for Seattle, I believe Miami briefly, but they might want someone with more of a football background too, not just a financial cap background. That's very important, but I think Colbert was kind of a football scout guy, and that's what they made the hire there. So I really look at Brandon Hunt, and of course it could be someone outside the organization entirely. Colbert was obviously an outside hire, so I just want to throw out Brandon Hunt's name because I think he's been someone that other NFL teams have looked at. The Eagles tried to steal him away. He's a guy that's kind of risen up the ranks. He's the pro scouting coordinator, I believe, right now. So I could see that transition working, but we're a ways away.
Yeah, and hopefully we're not. Personally, and like I said, we'll see what 2019 brings us. I mean,
Sure.
if it's a good season, they're back in the playoffs, and heck, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that this 2019 can potentially win it all. If these second year players that we've talked about, rise up and all, and everybody stays healthy, there's a good reason to think this team can compete this year.
And that's basically what Art Rooney said. So a good transition there. Rooney also spoke, I think, on Steelers Nation Radio or Steelers.com, and just saying that he doesn't believe this window for a championship is closing. And I think as long as Ben here, that window's still open. But I still think that's the timeline, is you want to win another Super Bowl in the Roethlisberger era. And if you don't, it's a disappointment.
How long has this window been closing?
It's been slowly. It's a very large window. It's closing very slowly.
Seriously, how long have people been saying we got to hurry up? Ben's window's closing.
To be fair, I don't think anyone expected Ben to play when he was 40. Even 5 years ago, I don't think anyone expected that.
Yeah, but here we are.
Well, sure.
For the last 6 years, it seems like Ben's window's closing, and it's not closed yet. It's not. With 3 years left, there's a pretty good stream of air coming through that window right now.
But you agree that the window is tied to Ben's playing, and once he retires, that window's closed.
Sure. Obviously, you're hoping that maybe one of these kids behind him in Rudolph, or Rudolph particularly, might be the guy, but it's what we don't even know what that is or isn't right now.
Yeah. Right.
And hopefully we're not going to find out anytime soon what that is and isn't. And a lot can change coming out in the quarterback classes in the next several years anyway there. But Art Rooney says, as we sit here today, there's no reason to think he can't do that. Talking about Roethlisberger, if he'd play his age 40 season in 2022, the year after his contract expires, there's no reason to think he can't do that. Rooney said of the quarterback, his father had to help step in to draft back in 2024. Physically, and that's Matthew adding that in there. God, I love Matthew Marksy, man. he's such a rock of what we do on the site. Physically, if he wants to do that, he'll be able to do it. It will really be up to him how long he wants to stay at it here. And then he goes on to say, I don't look at it like there's a window closing. I look at it like every year there's an opportunity, and you put the puzzle together every year. But the best pieces together, put the best pieces together you can every year. Obviously, Roethlisberger's one of those pieces, and he's a big piece of it as well too. So, look, like I said when Mike Tomlin was, when that was announced, there's no reason, these next 3 years, at least one championship should be expected. Plain and simple.
Yep.
I don't know. Do people view this year as being a rebuilding year or what? Or I don't know how people are viewing this year. Look,
I don't think so. I would hope not.
I would hope not too. You got this offensive line still intact. I think people look at it more that way because, and this is more the national mainstream media, because of they still trying to lump the loss of Brown and Bell together as being huge. Bell obviously didn't play last year. Why even bring his name up when you talk about off-season losses when it comes to the Steelers? Because they've already shown that they can function without him. Now, can they get past Brown leaving? That's going to be the big narrative that we're going to continue with. Is it an addition by subtraction kind of narrative that we're going to be talking about for most of the season here, I think. But beyond that, you got a lot of young talent on offense still. And the defense should be expected to be better this year. No two ways around it. So when you look at all the draft collateral, with all the collateral, not only via the draft and the free agency that have gone into the defense the last few years. Now, obviously, the Bostic and Burnett, and who else did they add? Bure. You look to a year ago. That there's a big wah, kind of sound based on last year's free agency. But when you look at the totality of the draft and free agency this year, and what they have offensively and what they had defensively going into this, there's no reason to think that this team can't compete for at least one, maybe two championships in this 3-year. And I think that's what you got to look at is this next 3-year window is how we look at it right now.
Yeah, no, they're not rebuilding. They're trying to reload, and I know that's a little cliche, but they're definitely, as long as they have Ben, they're never rebuilding. Once Ben's gone, they may hit that mode, or at least be in search for that franchise quarterback, or at least figuring out what they may have in Mason Rudolph. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentiment that this team's got to bring home one more Lombardi.
All right, so we'll see how the season obviously plays out going forward, but Rooney doesn't sound overly worried.
Dave, the other news that happened, this happened on, what was it, Saturday, the second day of training camp before practice started. Steelers announced their 2019 Hall of Honor class. 4 names inducted this year: Bill Cowher, Hines Ward, L.B. Nickel, and Larry Brown. So some notables that haven't been inducted yet. I thought Martin Cope was going to get in. I'm surprised that he didn't. Troy's obviously still not been inducted. I kind of understand that, though, with him being up for the Hall of Fame this year, and, of course, some of the tensions that probably still exist between him and the organization. But your reaction to those 4 being inducted?
Larry Brown's a great, did a lot of great things, had a nice long run with the Steelers, obviously converted from the tight end to the tackle position there. Was there a rush to get him in this class?
Yeah, David O told me the news when we were walking in the camp, and he's like, Alex, you hear the Hall of Honor? And I said no. And then he said Cowher, Nickel, Ward, and Brown. And I'm like, Larry Brown? Really? I mean, a good player, but yeah, that was surprising.
That was surprising to me too. Look, we both get the LB Nickel. How nice!
I love the LB Nickel.
I do too. How nice would it be to have a season's worth of games of LB to sit back and watch during the off season?
It'd be cool. There were some good highlights. There's a 52 season recap of the 52
I've
season
seen that one.
on there, and there's a lot of highlights of LB Nickel, so you get a little taste of it. Yeah, that was the best end they had before Heath Miller.
Right, and I mean, we both on board with that. I mean, I understand the Bill Cowher one too. I mean, I guess I'm okay with him being in this next class here. Did it have to happen now?
I'm okay with it. I thought he would have been one of the top options. Again, I'm surprised. And Ward, obviously, I think is very deserving, and that's great for him. Myron Cope. How is Myron Cope not in yet?
And I guess they're going to at least put in 4. It seems like, and I think I think a lot of people maybe were under the understanding that each class was going to be 5.
Me too. I wasn't.
But it seems like they want to put at least 4 in and have the option maybe to have 5 in there. I mean, it's hard to think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially the dynasty teams, without thinking about Myron Cope, right? I mean, he wasn't a player. He wasn't a front office guy, but I mean, iconic, Sure. I mean, he was the voice of the Steelers.
And helped really invented the terrible towel,
right.
The icon of the franchise.
Right. So. I mean, he's going to get in. We know he's going to get in. To put Larry Brown in over him, I don't quite see that. And nobody understands the animosity more between Troy Polamalu and the Steelers organization than me. I mean, I've had good conversations with Alex Holmes, his brother-in-law over the years, and Troy was not happy with how things ended, in Pittsburgh, and it's going to take more time for it to heal. He's obviously not showing up at any of these, reunion team functions and all like that. And, was this, did they slight him? I'll put it to you this way. I don't know why this isn't going to help things. You get what I'm saying? I don't know.
Well, I understand why.
Did Troy say, don't put me in, or,
I don't think Troy literally said that, but I think there's an understanding of that wound hasn't healed yet, and until it does, they don't want to induct Troy and then Troy not want to show up or have tensions when he does show up. They want it to be a good relationship whenever he is, and he will be inducted into the Hall of Honor.
But that's not how you do Hall of Fames, though. Either the guy deserves to get in or he doesn't, right?
Well, this isn't Canton, so I think they have a little more flexibility here.
I know,
it's okay.
But it's still the principle matter,
I'm okay with it. I understand, and I agree with it, because you want Troy to show up for his induction, right? And he may not show up if you did it this year, and that'd be a terrible look.
So, are you going to take are you going to roll the dice that next year he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and then all of a sudden, because of that, all the wounds are going to close up, and they're all going to be holding hands, singing "Kumbaya"?
No, I don't think it's gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be next year. I don't know when it's gonna be. I just hope that at some point that something happens where they communicate and they talk it out and time kind of moves on. I don't know if it's gonna be next year. I don't think the Hall of Fame is gonna magically change anything with that relationship. But I just hope that at some point, maybe 5 years from now, that relationship gets mended and that they can induct him and celebrate it properly. And I think that's the idea behind it.
So you're saying that the Steelers Hall of Honor should wait until they think that the perceived wounds are healed?
That, and also maybe in some way actively work to try to mend that relationship. I'm sure they probably just can't sit around and just hope Troy wakes up one day and says, all right, I'm cool about how everything happened.
And to be fair, we don't know what they are and aren't doing.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm not saying they have to be passive about it, but you wait to induct Troy until that relationship is better than it is right now. That's the idea.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you. I think if he wants to, I think you put him in as respect to him when you think he should go in, and if he wants to show up, fine. If he doesn't, that's fine as well. That's the way I would handle it.
All right, fair enough. Dave, what else do we want to get to here? The NFL Top 100 has been rolling along, and all the Steelers might have gotten it, which I have one very big problem if that's true. But the ones that we haven't covered yet, I believe, are Ben at 44, Juju at 77, and James Conner at 62. I'm doing that off the top of my head. Does that sound right?
I think you have Juju way too high. Way too low there. He was 47th. I think you said 77th.
No, I meant to say 47. I might have said 77.
All right. Here's where we're at now. Ben at 44th, as you said. Juju at 47th overall, and the other ones were. Let me scroll down to my list here. James Conner, 62nd overall. Cameron Hayward, 88th overall. T.J. Watt, 93rd overall. And they got to be in the full 40s now, right?
They're in the 30s, I think. I saw Derwin James at 31.
David DeCastro ain't getting in that group, right?
How? He was 40-something last year. I know it's player vote, whatever, but come on.
I don't think he's going to crack that.
Insane.
And
Ben,
look,
criminal.
And look, this is all subjective, and none of this means nothing to nobody. And basically, what the NFL does with this is try to spur conversation, and they're damn sure doing a good job of it this year when it comes to that. But Roethlisberger is ranked 44th this year in the NFL top one. This is me and my research here. It's a shame I spent time researching this, but for 2019 and last year he was ranked 18th overall. So he's dropped. He led the league in passing yardage, and he dropped from 18 to 44 overall. This after leading the league in passing yards. His previous rankings, 2018, he was 18th overall. 2017, he was 22nd overall. 2016, he was 21st overall. 2015, he was 26th overall. 2014, still 31st overall. Now, you have to go all the way back to 2013 with him being ranked outside of the top 31. He was 61st overall in 2013. So show me what – look, he did – he led the league in interceptions last year. When you throw 6,000 pass attempts a year, few of them are going to get picked. I'm not using that as an excuse for him, but how do you drop him that many places? It's just insane.
I'm sure you loved Baker Mayfield being at 50 on that list, 6 spots behind Ben.
Yeah, that's. Look.
Even that's too high even for me.
Yeah, I thought he had a great rookie season, and I'm interested to see all this hype surrounding him with the weapons that he has and yada yada. But and I haven't even gotten back around to look to see who the quarterbacks are going to be ranked ahead of Ben this year.
I haven't either. And just to prove I'm not being a homer here with the DeCastro and some of the Ben talk, I'll say something that might anger a section of Steeler fans. I think James Conner's too high. 62. He had a good start to last year. He's a really good player, but to only go through about half a year with some of the fumbling issues he had and the injury, it was surprising to almost see him in the top 100. and then to see him at 62, I mean, above Hayward, above T.J. Watt, I'd be moving one of those guys to 62 in place of Connor.
I think I might flip-flop, flip-flop Connor with either Hayward or Watt.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think Hayward and Watt for sure above Connor, regardless of how you rank it.
And I'm not dissing. I mean, look, Connor did have a great season last year, but look at you know me, I like to go back to successful run rates and all, and then also he didn't play the full schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And he did have a few key fumbles, as well. So once again, I don't want to. To me, he belonged in the top 100. I think talking about James Conner, I just don't think that it should have been that high.
Yeah, I think maybe where Watt came in at 93 would be a better place for Connor, and then move maybe Hayward up to 62, Watt to 88. Watt's going to be a lot higher though this time next year.
You would think, and yeah, I do think. I thought for sure, I would have bet you money that at least that DeCastro would have been somewhere in this top 100 this year, but I don't know. It's not looking like it. I think they've already said that the highest ranked offensive lineman has already been revealed.
Really? Well, that's just disrespectful in general. You're telling me some of these big names aren't going to be in the top 30, 40?
I think that's the way it's going to shake out.
Wow. Well, that's just some of the bias, I guess, with even the players looking at the skill positions over the trench guys.
Fat men can't get no respect.
I know respect. DeCastro certainly deserves it, and a host of others. All right, Dave, is there anything I missed? I have something in my notes here that I can't quite read that I wrote down. Am I missing something you wanted to talk about before we get to some reader emails?
How about Jason Lockenfora saying that the Steelers may be in a position to get trade compensation for Joshua Dobbs? React to me.
Yeah, I don't see that terribly likely. I know everyone's looking for a quarterback. I mean, if he plays well in the preseason like he has, I know we kind of talked about that last year, so I don't want to totally discount the idea, but it's not even something I'm thinking about right now. I'm just thinking about watching Dobbs and to try to turn things around after kind of a rocky first 4 days.
He went on the Fan yesterday. I think they may be in a position where they can get a decent draft pick for Josh Dobbs. Lockenfora said, if you can get a 5 or something that moves you up a little more, if he actually plays where he goes, I mean, the reality there is does a team get stuck? Does a team that thinks he's pretty good lose a quarterback or maybe two, maybe in a position where you can get more than that? That's a lot of ifs and buts, and expecting a lot for a guy that's had one good preseason game, and
he's had more than that.
Okay, two combined good preseason games, and one nice regular season throw or play.
Yeah.
And all things considered, I did right after that Carolina game last year. To me, that was the place to strike when the iron was hot. You could make an argument because of the shape that the Panthers' backup quarterbacks were late last year during the preseason, and with the kind of offense that they run and having a mobile quarterback in Cam Newton, that it made a lot of sense for them to potentially trade Dobbs to Carolina then, and then keep Landry Jones and keep Mason Rudolph at that point. Get a 6 or whatever for him. I'm not convinced now that Dobbs holds the value that some of these others, and we'll see. Look, I mean, he could have a great preseason, right? And then that really changed things. We expect to see both Dobbs and Rudolph play a ton here during the preseason. So maybe he does light it up. Even if he does light it up, is he worth more to you than he is getting a 6th-round draft pick?
Fair question. Well, if I got a 6th-round pick for Dobbs, I'd probably right now I feel like I might do it. But Dobbs does a nice job of rising to the occasion and playing well in games, competing for his roster spot, and being able to knock off Landry Jones last year. So I don't want to discount.
He didn't in the Raiders game.
No, I mean I get that. I'm just saying in the preseason and just his first 2 years, that's what he's shown. I mean the Raiders game was a struggle. I mean I get that. It was a mess for a lot of parties that night. Carolina, though, is probably going to be off the table this year because they went out and drafted Will Greer to be their backup quarterback. So I'm not sure who would be the suitor. You're trading for a backup number 2 at best quarterback, and I don't know what the value is there. Maybe a 6th-round pick, but he's going to have to play well in the preseason, though, to either build back up or retain that value.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of too high a speculation on the part of La Canfora. Like I said, at the end of last year's preseason game against Panthers, I really could see it, but now not so much. We'll see how Dobbs. We'll revisit this after a couple preseason games, maybe.
Yeah, it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or a week from now, and I'm not even thinking about it. And I'm just thinking about his performance, how he can help the team, how he's competing with Rudolph, and he's for Dobbs to get traded, he's going to have to become the number 3. We agree with that. They're going to have to say that Rudolph would be the number 2, correct?
Right, and we do expect that to happen.
Sure, but it has to happen. It has to happen.
Right, we have to see it happen.
Yeah, they won't even entertain that idea until they say that, okay, Rudolph is the backup. Now Dobbs may be a little more expendable.
And then if he's your number 3, why is another, if he's not good enough to be the argument then would be if he's not good enough to be your number 2, why would another team trade for him,
to be your number 2.
To be your number 2.
Yeah, it would take an injury and then being quarterback star. But it'd be interesting. I wonder if at some point this team will only carry 2 quarterbacks like half the league does and open up a roster spot for somebody else. That would be an idea that they haven't done before.
And obviously, one kind of other thought here is Kevin Colbert did talk a little bit about Chris Boswell and his current status. Chris obviously was our kicker last year, and he had a disappointing season. Disappointing for him, disappointing for us, and really disappointing considering what he did for the year before. Chris had 4 walk-off wins for us, or he helped us finish those walk-off wins. So again, he's done it before, and we want to see him do it again. He wants to see him do it again, and he has to prove to himself and prove to us that he can match the standards that, quite honestly, he set in 2017. So again, he's a young player. He hit a slump, and again, until Kevin Colbert's like me and however and he likes again and again until we get into the preseason and regular season, we won't know if he's coming out of it. So we better be prepared, and we have competition here, and we'll also be watching what's going on around the league with other kickers. So Boswell still has that something to prove here. I'm not convinced that if it's not Boswell that it's going to be Matthew Wright, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, Colbert said as much. He just said look around kickers around the league. So sure, it's not just Boswell versus Wright. It's Boswell versus Wright versus whoever's going to be on the market. Yeah, the rest of the league. So yeah, this one's still got a long ways to go. And even if Boswell has a good preseason, you never know how it's going to go. I think he made all his kicks last preseason. I looked it up, and then things fell apart in the regular season. So you just won't know until 2 months from now.
Right. But he's going to be on a shorter lease. As long as he doesn't, how bad does he have to make every kick in the preseason to keep his job?
It would depend on how the misses happen and where they happen from. So I mean, short answer, no, but you better not miss more than one.
Right.
It's a short lease.
They're not going to send him out there to kick a 58-yarder, But I mean, to me, they ought to send him out there, in lieu of keeping a drive alive, maybe sometime on a 4th and 1 from 48 yards out. I'd be more inclined to send him out there than I would trying to pick up the first down just to put him in a pressure situation.
Yeah, I'll let him kick from 50, maybe not 58, but 53, sure. Put him in a big spot. I mean, I want to put him in any situation possible, any pressure situation, so I'm not opposed to it.
All right, what do you think about the naming rights in Heinz Field and all?
Yeah, I saw some of the stories. What is it that basically Heinz Field's not going to be Heinz Field after the contract runs up next year?
That sounds like the naming rights are going to be available.
Okay, because Kraft owns Heinz Field and they don't have a headquarters in Pittsburgh anymore, so they don't have a compelling reason to keep that contract or renew that contract. So yeah, I wonder what would you call Heinz Field, Dave? Dangerous game.
3 Yinzers.
Don't answer that.
As Matthew Marksy threw out there, 3 Yinzers Stadium.
That's good. All right, that's a winner.
Look, I mean, it's going to obviously have to be some. UPMC. I mean, do they?
Yeah.
That would be a way that you could see it potentially going there. I don't know. Who PP What's the bank up there? The big PNC.
PNC, yeah. But UPMC is probably a good one. Pittsburgh, pretty big medical field in terms of the city, so that would make a lot of sense. I haven't thought about it at all, but I'd be bummed. I like Heinz Field, and I'm sure they're probably not going to go with. They're going to go with a corporate sponsor. They're not going to go with a Three Rivers where there's no name attached to it.
Right. There's got to be you got to capitalize on the available dollars there.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be Three Rivers. I wouldn't think. I mean, I would think I don't know. Maybe they call it Three Rivers, or PNC at Three Rivers, or
right.
Something along those lines there. But it does. I mean, what's going to happen to them giant? You have now entered the Heinz red zone.
Oh yeah,
What's going to happen?
You've entered the UPMC. It's not doesn't ring as quite as well.
Yeah, and I don't think the Permane Brothers red zone or.
Hey, I'll do Permane Brothers Stadium. You entered the.
How about the Iron City red zone or something along those lines? Okay, what else are we missing? Like I said, I mean, we did a main show back on Friday, but it seems like so much has happened since then. I think we got a lot of it out of the way, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously, anything, we'll be back for. Oh, I don't know when our next podcast. It's gonna be tough with the Friday Night Lights. I'm sure we'll do one at some point. We'll have to kind of work out the schedule, I think, Dave, because they got a lot of practices.
Maybe we can. Maybe we can. Well, let's do. We should be able to do one Friday morning, right?
Yeah, I guess with the Friday Night Lights practice, that should be okay.
Because we're not going to do a Friday. Generally, we don't do a special edition podcast after the Friday Night Lights practice because you get home so late.
Yeah, and because I'm leaving later. Okay, yeah, we should do Friday then. I'm sorry, that should be fine.
All right, we'll do Friday morning and do they have? Are you looking far enough ahead of next Tuesday? Do they practice next Tuesday?
I believe they do, but I think that they have Monday off. They go Sundays or last of the 5, and they have, I believe, Monday's that off day. So we should be able to record probably Monday evening.
Right. Well, we'll probably do then is we'll record late Monday night for the Tuesday morning podcast, and then you and I do our and then really I think that might be one of the few obstacles that we have remaining.
All right. I'm sure people love to hear us plan our
open
schedule.
Dialogue here. Pull out your Google Calendar, Alex.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to some reader emails here, Dave, and listen to the people and tell them things they want to hear to finish out the show.
All right. Let me see if I can get us to a spot here. Find this one here from potential 9 starting offensive linemen. Hi, guys. First off, Dave, are you dealing with grasshoppers? There was that national story about the grasshoppers here in Vegas and all like that because they're having a kind of unseasonably wet as a result of a unseasonably wet spring and early summer here. There were swarms of them at certain parts of the city here in Vegas, but really there have been no visible signs of them here, Jim. I think it's just isolated areas where people are seeing those, and I think they're kind of already come and gone at this point. So no, I'm not getting overrun by the locust here or anything. My crops here in Vegas are fine. Dave, are you dealing with, okay, beyond that? Dave and Alex, the Steelers have quietly went about accumulating the best offensive line core in the NFL. Barring injuries, do you think that the Steelers can take advantage of this situation and put most maulers on the line of scrimmage than an opposing defense can handle and just watch defenders get clocked out of the game left and right while James Conner or Benny Snell are running down the field untouched? What goes around comes around. Jim in Elizabeth Township. Look, I mean, you're not going to run more just to run. You're going to run more because you're successful running. If that makes sense here. And I think, Alex, you just recently wrote a little bit about the offensive line and the nice depth that they have. So that's a good segue there to hit something that you just wrote on.
Sure, yeah, they're not going to use 7 or 8 offensive linemen on the field at one time, but they have a great starting 5, and they just have the rare team to have great starters and to have really quality depth. And that's why I think that battle's going to be interesting. There's going to be some really tough cuts along the O-line when you're talking Zach Banner, Derwin Gray, Fred Johnson, Gerald Hawkins. I mean, you got some really difficult decisions. You just can't keep all those guys. But the fact that they have that kind of depth, so if an injury happens or they want to make a trade and send someone like a Hawkins out or a Banner out, I mean, that's possible. So I think they're just in a really unique place. But it's all based off their investment in the offensive line, spending draft picks, hiring guys like Munchak, putting in the time to give Munchak an assistant, and always drafting guys, whether that's great in the 7th round or getting some talent in the UDFA land. They've really put the investment into the offensive line. So it's no surprise that they've gotten such a good product out of it. But they have a good starting line, and I don't anything's gonna be different this year. I will say this, and I should have mentioned this the other day, is that I have seen them use a 6 offensive lineman with a core for a couple times in camp so far. So that could still continue moving forward to bring that extra big body out there.
We don't expect them to trade, right? Any backup offensive lineman?
Oh, I think they could. I think it's possible if they have someone like a Hawkins that they just can't keep from a numbers game, and they feel like they can get a 6th-round pick for him. Sure. I mean, I don't. What are the odds? It's always total speculation. But knowing that 3/4 of the league needs a lineman, I could see it happening. They trade, say the Steelers send a 6th-round pick to somebody for a tight end or a safety, then they send Hawkins out for a 6th-round pick and recoup that. Yeah, I think that's at least theoretically possible.
Hate to interrupt this. Tyreek Hill went down with the Chiefs. Went down with a lower leg injury of some sort today. This morning.
It's sounding serious.
He got carted off. So we'll have to keep our eye on that.
You got the Bengals with AJ Green. Now I wonder if he's going to miss the Steelers game week 4.
That's it. I think he's going to get a second opinion on that, right?
Is he? I don't know. I just saw that it said 6 to 8 weeks, and it feels like it's going to be probably 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's had problems staying healthy in the past, right? And
he's 31?
31. He's up there, and there was talk about now that they have Tyler Boyd extended, just giving him an extension recently. Would they be able to also get AJ Green extended as well too? And it's going to be expensive to do that because you would have to pay him more than what you just paid Boyd. Yeah, realistically, you'd have to make I think AJ Green a top 5 paid wide receiver in the league or whatnot, and I don't know. I don't see them doing that at this point. So we'll have to see about this injury if it's going to how deep into the regular season that might end up making a miss. But this is a guy with below his knees in AJ Green has just had a lot of problems trying to stay healthy there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Matt Fleming writes in. First half, just to say thank you both for all you do. As a Pittsburgh native living in Maryland the last decade, it's awesome to have the best in the business covering the black and gold. Thank you for that, Matt.
Thank you.
With Dimebacker an area of need, in his opinion, is Cameron Kelly someone to think about giving a look here? Having played both defensive back and safety, it would appear his versatility could be a great fit. Admittedly, I don't know much about him, but on paper it seems like he'd be worth a look there. P.S. Alex, keep killing the training camp updates. Yeah, Alex, keep knocking those out of the park there. Look, we talked a lot about Cameron Kelly, and really there's not a lot to know about him outside of limited time with the Cowboys. I think last year during the preseason, he really didn't do much in overall. When you look at that tape there, the AAF tape, obviously made a splash there, and he landed on the Steelers. Alex probably has the best view of Cameron Kelly right now out of anybody.
Yeah, it's been good. He's flashed the ball skills. Again, I talked about this yesterday. You want to see him work in space as a center fielder. It's where the free safety is going to play 90% of the time in the Steelers scheme. And I know his athletic profile isn't great. He didn't test well coming out of San Diego State, but safety depth has been weak. He's been getting an opportunity. Tomlin seems to be generally happy with where he's at. So, it's I think you put it well the other day, Dave. He's going to be one of those top 2 or 3 guys that you circle heading into the first preseason game against Tampa and saying we really want to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, we want to see where the obviously the anticipation level with him and speculation level is very, very high right now. So now let's just see where it goes from the start of the early part of the preseason on through the rest of it there. And we should have a pretty good idea after these first couple preseason games I mean, look, as we said at the top of the show, in kind of my top nuggets, recaps of the recaps, if you will, this guy is definitely now has to be in play for the 53. So let's see where it goes from there. Jeff Burns writes in, "Hey, Dave and Alex, with great respect to everything you guys do during the regular and off season, training camp is the time I think you guys really shine. Thank you both for making a California kid feel like he's right there at Latrobe with special shows and training camp diaries. Question. We will all like to hear about the accomplishments the rookies make in training camp, but we all know mistakes are the true teacher. If guys like Juju and Xavier didn't know the value of holding on to the ball before, they certainly do now. In your opinion, what kind of mistakes do you hope to see the rookies who are looking to make a year one impact like Devin Bush and Deontay Johnson make in camp to properly prepare them for the regular season? Thank you, guys. Alex, your next McChicken is on me. Best, Jeff Burns. No relation to Artie Burns. That's a good one, Jeff. Look, with Bush, and I think this is kind of a nugget that Bud Dupree gave the other day during his talk. They're trying to make a conscious effort of making him call what he's seeing, everything, not turning around and helping him or whatever. Let him, let him make his mistakes now of the things that he should be seeing that he's not seeing now in camp. I would think that's the biggest thing right now with him. You got to get him as comfortable as possible seeing what he's supposed to see. We know the athleticism and all like there, the read and react and kind of stuff should be there, but make him learn as much as he can about what he's supposed to be seeing on the other side. With Deontay Johnson, and I think Alex and I kind of talked about it early as well too. You just want to get this guy as much on the same page with Ben as far as the unseen things, the checks, the hot reads, all the little aspects of it, in addition to a full grasp of the playbook. And obviously, you'd like to see some of the drops, go away and all like that. But I think as far as the mistakes with him going Deontay Johnson is, you just want all the unseen stuff and the grasp of the offense to be worked out as much as possible. Go ahead, Alex.
I don't have anything specific in mind. I get the value of the question, and I agree mistakes can be the best teacher, but I don't sit there and hope for a mistake. I just know they're naturally going to happen. I mean, every rookie's going to make mistakes and get corrected and get coached up. So I don't have to hope or wish that they happen. I know that they will. But yeah, I think it was a good point about Bush, and it was a good story from Dupree saying they don't talk to him. They make Bush call everything, and they just look at him to make sure that he's the one, not leaning on everybody else to do it for him. So he becomes comfortable with it. With Johnson, I think just learning about press coverage and getting those corners rolled up on you, playing that extra receiver spot and kind of getting beat up, that'll be something that he's experienced before, but not at this level. And then playing in the scramble drills and playing with Ben Ball. And I think working with Dobbs really helps because Dobbs will run around and plays, and that kind of helps create scramble drills. So I think that'll be something that Johnson and most receivers have to learn to play in the system with Ben. And the other guys, I think it's just playing as a reserve. Justin Lane was a starting corner at Michigan State, one of the best athletes on the team, playing some receiver too. Now he's running third string and getting reps here and there. Benny Snell was the guy at every point in his life. He goes to Kentucky, he's freshman of the year or whatever, has a 1,000-yard season. Now he's third, fourth string. He's just getting reps, splitting for some time, and learning how to be a backup. I mean, that's true of all these guys. Isaiah Buggs had 9 sacks for Bama last year. Now he's third string right at the end. So it's just learning how to make the most of your reps and learning how to be a reserve and kind of sit around and take those mental reps when you're on the sideline. These are things that all rookies have to learn and experience and overcome the mental hurdle of, and that's always a challenge, and it's hard to see from you and I's standpoint, but something they all have to be able to deal with and just make the most of their chances.
All right, this was from James A. Krebs, Artie Burns apologist. Hi, Dave and Alex. When Artie Burns was drafted, I thought that he might succeed, and in the early part of his career, he seemed to show progress. In training camp, we heard that he held his own against Antonio Brown and that he seemed to be good at man coverage. Then what happened? I wonder if these two things have been part of Artie's problems. First, the Steelers signed Joe Haden on August 30th, 2017. That means that that with minimal practice time, Artie had to adjust to a new teammate to start the season. I'll stop you right there. Signing Joe had nothing to do with Artie and his problems. Joe being an excellent cover corner became the man, and that meant that Artie's assignments may have changed somewhat, requiring him to play a bit more zone, and also meant the opposing team's probably game plan to attack Artie and stay. Yeah, I think you're going a little bit deep there. I think you're reading way too much into the addition of Joe Haden affecting, playing into Artie there. Secondly, with all the emphasis on winning the battle with turnovers, Artie may have felt that he had to come up with the big play in the situation. In that situation, the opposing wideout saw opportunities to set up and exploit the over-anxious Burns. It is ironic that the Steelers replaced Artie with a don't-get-beat long tackle-to-catch guy in Cody Sensabaugh. I hope that Artie can adjust this year and let his athleticism come forth. He wants our comments on that. Look, Artie coming out of college was a better bump and run guy than anything. Even so, the warning signs were there with the physicality, with the understanding of the defense, and the fact that he wasn't an every down player even in his junior year of college. That was very concerning when you're going back through the field there. Also, it was quite evident that Artie is not the brightest X's and O's guy there. I think he still struggles in reacting off of what he sees across from him and the opposing defense there. Physically, athletically, he's an athletic guy. We've seen him make some good plays, and now it's talked time and time again about how he makes good plays in training camp. I'll turn it over to you for the rest of it, Alex.
The only thing I would agree with that comment in question was the part about teams attacking Artie a little more because of Haden. But that's life of a corner, and I don't use that as an excuse for poor play. Burns' issue last year was not being over-aggressive. Show me times where he went for a pick and missed or, got super aggressive. It was pretty uncommon. Think about the Tyler Boyd touchdown he gave up against Cincinnati. He's not trying to be aggressive there. He's backpedaling into the end zone and gives up the softest, easiest touchdown Tyler Boyd's ever going to catch. So it wasn't an issue of him pressing and wanting to make the big play. It was just an issue of him not trusting what he's seeing, playing with poor technique, and really just pretty obviously not playing with any sort of confidence. So I think those were the concerns there with Burns. When he comes in with some confidence and plays with good technique, he plays well, and that's what happens in training camp. So I'm not going to use Haden as an excuse. Adding talent is not going to make someone else worse. It didn't change schematically what the Steelers defense did. Even Haden himself really didn't change what the defense did a whole lot. If anything, they played more man coverage. They played the sixth most man coverage last year. So Artie just got to play well, and he's playing well right now, but he's got to be able to prove that he can do it when the games matter.
How much is football IQ playing into him struggling?
It's the main reason why he's struggling. And when I say football IQ, I just mean his technique and trusting what he sees and understanding the route combinations and stuff like that. So that's been his biggest issue, is his technique.
I agree. Well, the technique and then combine, not understanding all the time what he's seeing across from him, what to expect.
I honestly think it's not. The question was, is he being trying to press and make the big play? I think he's too worried about getting beat and giving up the big play that he kind of freezes and just is so concerned and adamant about I can't get beat that it really hurts him on some of the underneath stuff where he can drive, be explosive, and make those plays. So I actually think the issue partially is the opposite of what you said.
It's going to be interesting to see if he can rebound from this. I'm not expecting it. I don't think you are.
Well, assuming he makes the team, how do you prove it? He's going to have to wait for an injury because obviously he's not going to play in the defense right away. So, we might not get our answer for a while because he's not going to be playing day one like he was last year.
Right, exactly. Okay, anything else, Alex? You got some errands to run today, I think, and we've got a little bit of content to get up on the site and all. So you and I will be back after it again on Wednesday. After the Wednesday practice, we'll have the special edition of the podcast. Another one on Thursday. We will have Friday Night Lights. Like we said, we'll record one late Thursday, I think, for Friday morning, and there will be no show the the late recap podcast on Friday night because of Alex getting home so late and having to get his report up and all. So, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. Almost forgot what the email address was there. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, now is really the time to do it if you can. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar, or try to find the GoFundMe link. Alex, have you been putting that in the post in your?
I not the last couple of days because I heard some people were having troubles donating. I have to look into it. I don't know if there's something set wrong. So it'll be up for tomorrow's post though.
All right, and like we said, if you just want to go to SteelersDepot.com and donate that way, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. So until Wednesday night, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.